I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you this story about my own daughter. But sometimes life forces you into situations where you have to make the hardest decisions of your life, and I'm still not sure if I made the right one. My name is Sarah, and this is about the day I had to choose between being a loving mother and teaching my 17-year-old daughter Emma the most brutal lesson of her life. It started 3 months ago, on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Emma came downstairs for breakfast. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she wanted something from me. You know the look I'm talking about if you're a parent. That sweet, almost innocent expression that masks something they're about to ask for that they know you probably won't like. Emma had always been what people call a strong-willed child. From the time she could walk, she pushed boundaries, tested limits, and had this incredible ability to make me question every parenting decision I'd ever made. But she was also brilliant, talented, and had dreams bigger than our small town in Ohio could contain. She wanted to be a professional dancer, and honestly, she had the talent for it. I'd been driving her to dance classes 3 times a week for the past 8 years, spending money we didn't really have on competitions, costumes, and private lessons. That morning, she sat down at the kitchen table and said the words that would change everything between us. "Mom, I need $500. Just like that. No explanation, no pleas, no acknowledgement that $500 was more than our grocery budget for a month. When I asked her what it was for, she rolled her eyes in that way that made my blood pressure spike and said, "It's for this intensive dance workshop in Chicago. Everyone who's serious about dance is going. And if I don't go, I'll basically be throwing away my entire future." I tried to explain to her that we simply didn't have $500 to spare. I'd been working 2 jobs since her father left us when she was 12, and every penny was accounted for. I worked as a medical receptionist during the day and cleaned offices at night just to keep us afloat. I thought she understood our financial situation, but apparently, I was wrong. What happened next still makes my heart ache when I think about it. Emma looked at me with such contempt, such complete dismissal, and said, "You're just making excuses because you don't want me to succeed. You're jealous that I have talent and dreams, and you're stuck in this pathetic life cleaning other people's messes." Then she said the words that cut deepest. "You're powerless, Mom. You can't stop me from getting what I want. I'll find another way." I stood there in that kitchen, coffee mug shaking in my hands, watching my daughter storm out of the house. She slammed the door so hard that the picture frame on the wall fell and the glass shattered. I spent the next 20 minutes cleaning up those broken pieces, and I couldn't help but think it was symbolic of something much bigger breaking between us. For the next 2 weeks, Emma barely spoke to me. She'd come home from school, grab something to eat, and disappear into her room. When she did talk to me, it was with this cold politeness that somehow hurt worse than her anger. I tried to reach out, tried to explain again why I couldn't just come up with $500 out of thin air, but she'd just give me this look like I was the most disappointing person she'd ever met. Then I discovered what she meant when she said she'd find another way. I was doing laundry on a Saturday morning when I found a crumpled receipt in her jeans pocket. It was from a pawn shop downtown, and it showed that she'd sold her grandmother's ring. The ring that my mother had given to me when Emma was born, the one I'd promised to pass down to her someday. She'd taken it from my jewelry box and pawned it for $300. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about respect, about trust, about the fundamental relationship between a mother and daughter. I confronted her that afternoon, and instead of showing any remorse, she actually seemed proud of herself. "See," she said, "I told you I'd find a way. I only need 200 more, and then I can register for the workshop." That's when I realized that my daughter truly believed I was powerless. She thought she could manipulate me, steal from me, and disrespect me without any real consequences. She'd been testing boundaries for years, and I'd always bent rather than break. I'd always found ways to accommodate her demands, to sacrifice a little more, to make things work somehow. But this time was different. I sat in my car outside the pawn shop for 2 hours that day, trying to buy back my mother's ring. The owner, a kind older man named Frank, could see how upset I was. He told me he'd hold on to the ring for another week, but if I couldn't come up with the money, he'd have to put it out for sale. I didn't have $350 to buy it back, but I promised him I'd find a way. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. I thought about all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no, all the times I'd sacrificed my own needs to give Emma what she wanted. I thought about how her father had left us, and how I'd tried so hard to be both parents that maybe I'd failed at being either one effectively. But mostly, I thought about what Emma had said, that I was powerless, that I couldn't stop her from getting what she wanted. And I realized that she was right, in a way. I had been powerless because I'd given all my power away. I'd been so afraid of being the bad guy, so desperate to be the cool mom who supported her daughter's dreams, that I'd forgotten that sometimes being a parent means making unpopular decisions. The next morning, I made a choice that I knew would change everything between Emma and me forever. I called her dance studio and spoke with Ms. Rodriguez, her instructor for the past 4 years. I explained the situation, the theft, the disrespect, and what I was planning to do. Ms. Rodriguez was quiet for a long time, and then she said something that confirmed I was making the right decision. "Sarah," she said, "Emma is incredibly talented, but she's also become incredibly entitled. Some of the other students have complained about her attitude, and honestly, I've been concerned about the way she speaks to you when you pick her up." So I did it. I pulled Emma out of dance classes. All of them. The competitive team, the private lessons, everything. When she got home from school that day, I was waiting for her in the living room with all of her dance gear packed in boxes. The look on her face when she saw those boxes will haunt me forever. It was confusion first, then disbelief, then pure rage. "What is this?" she screamed. "What did you do?" I kept my voice calm, even though my heart was breaking. "I called Ms. Rodriguez today and withdrew you from all dance classes. I also called the workshop in Chicago and canceled your registration." Emma just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You can't do that," she whispered. "You can't just take away everything I've worked for." "Actually, I can," I said, "because I'm your mother, and apparently I need to remind both of us what that means. You stole from me, Emma. You took something that belonged to me, something precious and irreplaceable, and you sold it without asking. You've been disrespectful and cruel, and you told me to my face that I was powerless. Well, now you know that's not true." What happened next was the biggest fight we'd ever had. Emma screamed at me for over an hour. She called me every name in the book, told me I was ruining her life, that I was a terrible mother, that she hated me. She threw things, slammed doors, and finally locked herself in her room. I could hear her crying through the walls, and it took everything I had not to go to her and take it all back. But I didn't. Instead, I got in my car and drove to 3 different places where I'd applied for weekend jobs. By the end of the week, I was working a 3rd job on Saturdays at a local bakery. It took me 6 weeks to save up enough money to buy back my mother's ring. The house was like a war zone for the first month. Emma barely ate, barely slept, and definitely didn't speak to me unless absolutely necessary. She'd sit at the kitchen table doing homework with tears streaming down her face, and every part of me wanted to fix it, to make it better, to give her back what I'd taken away. My friends thought I was being too harsh. My sister called me crazy. Even my mother, Emma's grandmother, suggested that maybe I was punishing Emma too severely. But something interesting started happening after about 6 weeks. Emma's grades, which had been slipping because she was so focused on dance, started improving. She joined the school newspaper and discovered she had a real talent for writing. She made new friends outside of the dance world, kids who weren't part of that competitive, sometimes toxic environment that had been consuming her life. And slowly, very slowly, she started talking to me again. It started with small things. She'd ask me to pass the salt at dinner instead of just reaching across me. She'd say thank you when I did her laundry. Little signs that the ice was thawing. But it wasn't until 3 months after I'd pulled her from dance that we had our first real conversation. I was in the kitchen making dinner when she came downstairs and just stood there watching me cook. Finally, she said, "Mom, can we talk?" My heart started racing, but I tried to keep my voice casual. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" She sat down at the kitchen table, in the same spot where this whole mess had started, and said, "I've been thinking about what happened, about what I did and what you did, and I think I understand now why you stopped my dance classes." I turned around to face her, and I could see that she'd been crying. "Tell me what you understand," I said gently. Emma took a deep breath. "I was horrible to you. I said terrible things, and I stole from you, and I acted like you owed me everything just because you're my mom. I thought because you loved me, that meant you had to give me whatever I wanted, even if it hurt you. I didn't think about how hard you work, or how much you sacrifice, or how much it must have hurt when I pawned Grandma's ring." We both started crying then. I sat down next to her and took her hands in mine. "Emma, I love you more than anything in this world. That's exactly why I couldn't let you keep treating me the way you were treating me. It wasn't good for you, and it wasn't good for me." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know, and I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really, really sorry. I want to pay you back for the ring. I've been babysitting the Morrison kids every weekend, and I've saved up almost $200. I know it's not enough, but it's a start." That was the moment I knew I'd made the right decision. Not because she was offering to pay me back, but because she finally understood why what she'd done was wrong. She wasn't just sorry she got caught, or sorry she lost her dance classes. She was genuinely remorseful for how she'd treated me. But the story doesn't end there, because life is never that simple. About a month later, Emma came to me with something that surprised me completely. She'd been researching colleges with good journalism programs, and she'd found one that also had an excellent dance minor. She'd been secretly practicing in the garage when I wasn't home, staying in shape and working on new routines. "Mom," she said, "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I was hoping maybe we could talk about me taking dance classes again. Not the competitive stuff, not the expensive workshops, just regular classes at the community center. I'll pay for them myself with my babysitting money." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I could see how much she'd grown in the past 4 months. The entitlement was gone. The casual cruelty was gone. In their place was a young woman who understood the value of money, the importance of respect, and the meaning of real apology. "I think that sounds like a reasonable request," I told her, "but I have some conditions." She nodded eagerly. "Anything, Mom. I'll do anything. First, your grades stay up. School comes first, always. Second, you continue helping around the house without being asked. Third, if you ever speak to me the way you did before, if you ever take something of mine without asking, if you ever forget that respect is a two-way street, the classes stop immediately. No second chances." Emma agreed to all of my conditions, and she's kept every single one of them. It's been 8 months now since I took away her dreams, and our relationship is stronger than it's ever been. She's still planning to pursue journalism in college, with dance as a minor. She still practices, but now it's because she loves it, not because she thinks the world owes her a career. More importantly, she treats me like a human being. She says, "Please," and "thank you." She helps with chores without being asked. She considers my feelings before making requests. She's learned that love isn't about getting everything you want from someone. It's about caring enough about them to think about what they need too. Some people still think I was too harsh. They think taking away a child's passion is cruel, that I should have found another way to teach her respect. But I've watched too many parents who were afraid to set boundaries, who gave their children everything they asked for out of guilt or fear of conflict. I've seen how those children treat their parents, and how they struggle when they get out into the real world and discover that nobody else is going to cater to their every whim. I'm not saying my way was perfect. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if I'd broken something in Emma that could never be fixed. There were moments when I questioned whether teaching her a lesson was worth the pain it caused both of us. But looking at the young woman she's become, I know I made the right choice. Emma learned that actions have consequences, that respect isn't optional in relationships, that being talented doesn't give you the right to treat people badly. And most importantly, she learned that I'm not powerless. I'm her mother, and sometimes that means making decisions she doesn't like for reasons she might not understand until she's older. The interesting thing is that Emma's dancing has actually improved since she went back to classes. Ms. Rodriguez, who welcomed her back with open arms, says she dances with more emotion now, more depth. She's less focused on being the best and more focused on expressing herself through movement. The competitive edge is still there, but it's tempered with humility and gratitude. As I'm telling you this story, Emma is upstairs working on her college applications. She's applying to schools with strong journalism programs, and she's written her personal essay about learning the difference between dreams and entitlement. She asked me to read it before she submitted it, and I cried when I saw how honestly she'd written about our fight and what it taught her. In the essay, she wrote something that I think about every day. My mom didn't take away my dreams. She took away my excuses. She forced me to figure out which parts of my ambitions were real and which parts were just me expecting the world to hand me everything I wanted because I thought I deserved it. The dreams I have now are stronger because I've had to work for them, and because I know the difference between wanting something and being willing to sacrifice for it. That's what I want you to understand if you're a parent listening to this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your child is say no. Sometimes you have to be willing to be the bad guy temporarily to teach them lessons that will serve them for the rest of their lives. It's not easy. It's actually one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Watching your child hurt and knowing you could stop that hurt, but choosing not to, because there's a bigger lesson at stake. But here's what I learned through this whole experience. Children don't need parents who give them everything they want. They need parents who love them enough to prepare them for a world that won't. They need parents who model respect, who set boundaries, who show them that relationships are built on mutual consideration, not one-sided taking. Emma still dances. She still has big dreams. But now she also has character, resilience, and an understanding of what it means to work for what you want while treating the people who love you with kindness and respect. Those qualities will serve her far better in life than raw talent ever could. If you're dealing with a child who's testing boundaries, who's being disrespectful, who seems to think you exist solely to serve their needs, I want you to know that you're not powerless. You're the parent. You have the right to set standards for how you're treated, and you have the responsibility to teach your children how to be decent human beings. It might hurt in the short term, but the alternative, raising children who think the world owes them everything and who never learn to consider anyone but themselves, is so much worse. The relationship between a parent and child is supposed to be built on love, but love without respect isn't really love at all. It's just enabling. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is show your child that you're worthy of respect, too. Today, Emma and I are closer than we've ever been. She comes to me with her problems, her fears, her dreams, and her plans. She values my opinion because she knows I'll tell her the truth, even when it's not what she wants to hear. She trusts me because she knows my decisions come from love, not from a desire to control her or hold her back. That's the relationship I always wanted with my daughter. It just took losing everything temporarily to build something real and lasting. So if you're a parent struggling with a child who thinks you're powerless, remember this. Sometimes you have to take away their dreams to give them something better, character. And sometimes being the parent they need is more important than being the parent they want. The power was always mine. I just had to be brave enough to use it.